this morning. This morning I'm going to be talking about the winter solstice and the spiritual seeker. The winter solstice this year, Mountain Standard Time, is this coming Monday, December 21st. December 21st at 9:49 p.m. And again, that's Mountain Standard Time. This day is the shortest day of the year. Although I swear, when I got up at 6:30 this morning, it was still midnight. It was so dark. It was so dark out there. So we still have a few more days of darkness, and then starting the 21st, the sun is going to head north. If you're not in Mountain Standard Time, the universal time and day is December 22nd at 4:49 a.m. and that's Greenwich Mean Time, universal time. I'm glad that we live in Mountain Standard Time. So what is the winter solstice all about? I went to a book by Corinne Helene, who was a disciple of the Tibetan Draw Kul. She's written many, many books, some really beautiful books. As I read through this book called Stargates, I really couldn't find anything that would be specific to our need today. But I do encourage you, if you have such an inclination, to pull out her book. If you have it, if not, I'm sure you can order it somewhere on the internet. But this particular book is called Stargates, and it talks all about the solstices and the equinoxes. And what I appreciate so much about this particular book is that she gives some explanatory and definitions of the solstice and the equinox, but also then she talks about discipleship and how discipleship plays into these events, these cycles. So if you have some reading time, that's a good book to pull out. But I'm not going to say anything that she had to say this morning. But it was worth bringing up, because I know some of you are avid readers. So the question is that we want to ask ourselves as disciples, as spiritual seekers, journeying to a higher level, a greater level, a more expanded level of consciousness, we can take advantage of this cycle, the winter solstice. And this is why. The winter solstice is a time to be born anew. Now, I'm not talking about Christianity, to be born again, although that certainly is the underlying idea, the esoteric idea. To be born again for us means to be born anew. Not just as a spiritual seeker, but also as a humanity and also as a planet. So what's so beautiful is that this is not a religion. See, this is not a doctrine. It may be a tradition, but it's not religion and it's not a doctrine. So, winter solstice is a time to be born anew. It is at this time that the planet is given a spiritual impulse that adds to its light, the light of the winter solstice, and strengthens the love principle in the heart of humanity. So this is what we can, now that we understand and know that the winter solstice means a time to be born anew, we can be receptive, see, and responsive So a week from tomorrow, which is December 21st, if you're in Mountain Standard Time, again, it's 9:49. If you're Pacific Time, I guess it's 8:49. Set aside a half an hour. See if you can't put yourself in a meditative state of consciousness to be receptive to this light that's being released to the planet, to humanity, and let it strengthen the life principle in your own heart. If enough of us really set aside this time, engage in this meditative approach, we can then radiate the light and the love out to humanity. See, not just at that moment, but for days to come. Now here's a little history. Historically, the winter solstice was observed in Rome as the Feast of Saturn. Isn't that interesting? What? Saturn doesn't have a very good reputation. But in this case, according to the Rome tradition, the Feast of Saturn is a mystic marriage, dramatizing the marriage of the earth and the sun. So if you know a little astrology, especially esoteric astrology, and even more specifically what Helena Rourke, the founder of Agni Yoga, had to say about Saturn, then you can understand why Rome observed the winter solstice as a feast of Saturn. Now in Egypt, the winter solstice was celebrated with state ceremonials in homage to the Divine Mother Isis. See, this is Egypt at the winter solstice. The Divine Mother Isis and her newborn son Horus. And they chanted, "The Virgin has brought forth. The light is waxing." Look at the two different traditions, two different countries, and the different celebration, but they are celebrating the winter solstice. Again, it's not a religion. There has to be something. Let's say this. If it's not a religion, that means that no one is dictating to a body of people of what we should or should not be doing at this time. So if nobody is preaching to us, what to do or what not to do, then something else has to be going on. And that something else is the stirring of our soul. See, our soul is magnetically drawn to this cycle, to the winter solstice in this case. The Virgin has brought forth. The light is waxing. Then go to the first point that I said, the winter solstice is a time to be born anew. So here we have the planet taking a marriage with the earth and the sun, our earth and our sun, the physical sun, right? And now we have Egypt adding to this energy by paying homage to the Divine Mother Isis and her newborn son. This is so metaphysical, so esoteric. We want to think about it. And I don't have time to go into it this morning, and I shouldn't. Sometimes when people place words defining a particular idea or tradition, then we stop thinking beyond the words. See, let's go into the intuitive consciousness and really think, what does it mean? For example, the Feast of Saturn. Well, I can tell you this much. It represents a new birth, which represents initiation. Saturn is the planet of initiation for disciples. Did you know that? So this is a little piece of data in case you don't know it. And if you do know it, I'm reminding you. Okay. The Virgin has brought forth, the light is waxing. Well, the Virgin cannot be brought forth if we have a lot of dirt in our consciousness. And this is why in the meditation this morning, when we were personally talking to the great sage, which is the higher self, which is the solar angel, asking for the blessing and then sharing, these are my hindrances. See, we don't use the word sin. We don't say, these are my sins, which automatically puts us on the dark side. We're saying, these are my hindrances. Bless me so I can remove these hindrances. That is the Virgin has brought forth and the light is waxing. Now, Greece. The winter solstice in Greece is called Holy Night. And it's greeted by songs in the key of Capricorn to the accompaniment of a flute. At a certain time, neophytes descended with lighted torches to an underground chapel and paid reverence to the image of the babe, whose brow was a shining cross of gold. Isn't this beautiful? This is spirituality. This is about the life of the soul, of the planet, and of nations who are in contact with the pulse of this particular cycle, the winter solstice. Now, if we are buried in our hindrances, if we are buried in our problems, if we are buried in materialism, there's no reception. There is no magnetic feel between what's taking place universally and celestially and cosmically with our heart. Our heart is closed. Our soul is still asleep. But if we allow ourselves to gift ourselves at this time of the winter solstice, and then the days leading up to Christmas, which we call the holy days, you can be born anew. Wherever you are, even if you're born again, you can be born anew. So Christmas time every year is always a vital time. But this year and in the coming years, it will be even more vital. For Christmas time is now the time of transformation. It is a very serious time. And why is it serious, you ask? Because this is where our inner illumination, where our inner giant, the Christ, must take birth and eventually transfigure our personality. See, these are very real events, very real occasions. So don't let yourself fall into an intellectual gymnastic of saying, well, I know all of these things. What you want to do is ask yourself, have you been born anew? Have you, in this life, undergone transformation? Are you prepared to experience transfiguration? See, we have the teachings. We have and understand the teaching to have been given to us by great ones. And every lifetime, every incarnation we find ourselves in, we can then find this path that the great ones left for us, which is a beacon of light for us to follow. It's not about following a book. It's not about following a religion. It's about following our heart. That is part of the heart of the universe, the great cosmic heart. When this occurs, when we begin traveling, journeying this path of transformation, we expand our consciousness life after life after life after life until we can take in the whole of the purpose of life. As our consciousness expands and we begin to take in more light, more love, more power, there is a moment of initiation during Capricorn. And while Saturn is strong in your astrological chart, where you are given the opportunity to take the first major initiation. That first major initiation is called the third initiation, which is the initiation of transfiguration. So this isn't something that your vanity and ego can pretend that it has experienced. Because why? Prior to the taking of this initiation, you go through the dark night of the soul. And sometimes that dark night of the soul lasts for a whole incarnation or a week. It just depends on your homework. The other thing to realize, and when I first learned about this, I was shocked, is that you can go through the whole experience of the dark night of the soul, having passed it, and then ready for the transfiguration initiation. But if your planets are not in alignment with the right moment, I'm saying that wrong. If that moment is not aligned with the planets, you will not be able to take the initiation in this life, but next life you will. Isn't that interesting? Be ready. So be ready. So even if we don't take it this life, like some and many teachers told us, the year 2000 was the moment to take that transfiguration initiation. And some of you have not. And you were disappointed and you felt like a failure. But the thing is, if you were ready, if you had gone through that dark night of the soul, if you had undergone the purification and the disciplines, then you didn't take it. It was because of your own planetary alignment. It was not, meaning your soul was not yet in alignment, see, with that moment. But the next time you will be ready and you will take it. In a few years' time, in a few decades, in a few lifetimes, you will really actualize the manifestation of that spark which is within you. So my intention today is to encourage us, to challenge the fire that is within us, so that eventually we feel that that spark, our divine spark, our core, will start to revive within us and seek to manifest itself. My aspiration is that we hold together as sisters and brothers and friends and strive to be the very best that we can, so that we do not remain this level, at this level where we are now. This is the whole meaning of Christmas. Christmas time is really a time to sanctify ourselves. Now, when I'm saying Christmas time, I'm talking about the winter solstice. The winter solstice is Christmas time for disciples. December 25th is Christmas time for humanity. That's the esoteric secret. So Christmas time is really, the winter solstice is really a time to sanctify ourselves, to raise ourselves above the level where we are, and to touch a new level of consciousness. I'm ready. I hope you're ready. Because if we're ready, then humanity will gain. The great sage MM says, "Wayfarer friend, let us travel together as animals, as men, as angels, and as a nation, together as one humanity, together." Togetherness is so beautiful. Do not create divisions and cleavages within you or between you or among you. Now, as an exercise, here's 2 or 3 things that we can do for the winter solstice. Starting the day of the winter solstice, for those that want to participate, see, there's no imposition here. We can align the sun, the Christ within ourselves, to the source of life and to think as if we are the life. That we are not the physical body, but we are the life. If we start synchronizing ourselves with the electricity of the universe, with the light of the universe, we are going to bloom. And who doesn't want to bloom? Who wants to stay a bud? It's like, waiting for that beautiful rose that's a bud that you've been gifted with, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and it never blossoms because you bought it at Walmart. So we don't want to be a Walmart bud. Isn't that funny? Why do those things come in? I don't know. Anyway, we want to blossom. We want to bloom. We are going to manifest sound and color. We are going to become influential in the life. We are going to become creative. Now, in addition to aligning ourselves to the sun, another thing we can try from the 21st to the 26th is to, every morning, raise your right hand at sunrise and then hold your left hand out and say, "My Lord, pour down your blessings so that I may pass them on to the world." See, you can't do this in the mall. You can't do this at Macy's because you're too busy spending your money. So, before you spend your money, and as the sun rises in the morning, raise your right hand and your left hand and say, "My Lord, pour down your blessings so that I can pass them on to the world." Feel it. This is so beautiful. There used to be in ancient times these particular exercises. This is what they did. But too easily, we're too busy, and we justify our busyness. And then we come to the end of our life and say, "Why was I so busy?" It's like those 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 years just passed in a blink of an eye. So let's not be one of those people. Let's find time to take advantage of this incarnation and our knowledge as the priests of the ancient times did. For example, they used to go to the top of the pyramid and invoke the sun. Zoroastrian priests did. Tibetans in the Himalayas, in Greece. in North and South America did this. So this morning in our meditation, we went to a mountain. See, we're reviving this tradition. Tradition at the time of the winter solstice says that our solar logos extends his hand to the great sun Sirius, symbolically, of course, and then he gets a spark from that great sun and extends the next hand to the three kings, and that's Orion. He gets the three gifts from these three great lives, the three magi. Think of the three magi, right? And what were they given? Gold, frankincense, myrrh, which is virtue and prayer and suffering. It's the meaning. According to Origen, that's the meaning of those three gifts. He then takes the gifts from Virgo and gives them to our planet. This is forming a 5-pointed star. At the time of this formation, a tremendous energy comes to our planet. If humanity does the needed preparations, mental, emotional, and spiritual preparations, humanity will feel tremendously the energies that are flooding the planet. This is called in cosmos the birth of the cosmic light. A similar thing happens to us, to human beings. There was a very secret and sacred verse that the initiates used to meditate on and think over and discuss among themselves. It says there is a sun. This is a sacred verse. There is a sun, and another sun arises over the horizon. Between these two suns, a form appears. The second sun obliterates the first, and then the two suns blend and merge. The third sun is seen. And of course, this is all very symbolic. We know that at the winter solstice, the sun starts to move north, which means it increases in light. The day gets longer, and the great tribulations that he passed in battling with the thunder and rain and snow and cold and frost, whatever we call cold and darkness, begins to lessen. And this great entity moves northward until June 21st. Now, when that sun within us starts to move northward, which means moving toward a life of beauty, toward a life of great love and sacrifice, toward a life of great striving, real striving, then another ceremony of the birth of light happens within each of us. There are three kings within us, which is called the Spiritual Triad. We have Sirius, which is a solar angel. We have the Virgo, which is the personality, and the developing human soul, which is the sun. Those three kings within us. Okay, so now we have three suns. One sun is the monad, the spark of God, which is our essence. Now this comes and slowly goes to the south, which means into materiality, into darkness, and eventually into an unconscious existence. The monad goes to sleep. The spark goes to sleep. Then another sun comes, and this sun is the solar angel within us. It goes to the sleeping sun and says, "Come on, you are a spark of God. Why are you sleeping under the blankets of matter? Let's go." But the person says, "I can't. I am so weak. I cannot." But eventually this sun does move north. When he moves north and starts to walk the path of sacrifice, which means giving himself for the upliftment of others, the second sun came and disappears. The second sun is the solar angel, the guiding spirit which is within us, and it disappears. And the sun that was sleeping grows and glows and becomes like the day. So this is the drama between cosmos and man. We are told by the great Hermes, as above, so below. As in the great cosmos, so in the smallest atom, the same drama is enacted. If we look at infinity, there is room for greatness. We can grow as we go. There is no limit. This is beauty, the greatness, the mystery of God. And this is why we say that God is limitlessness. God is infinity. He wanted to act out this drama of striving and unfoldment in front of humanity, so he chose a very significant astronomical date, the winter solstice. In the winter solstice, the sun started to be born at dawn when it comes out of the Virgo constellation. Upon the Virgo constellation, the sun Sirius shines. And on the right hand of Sirius, you see the great three kings, the Orion. He was born in the cave. What is the cave? It's the shortest stay. See, the three kings came, and he collected all his 12 disciples, the 12 zodiacal signs, and they really played their roles. So in essence, according to our tradition, we can say that the winter solstice is the day in which our unfolding human soul, which is the fallen spark within man, must move northward and try to extend his hand into the virginity of pure love, the virginity of pure relationships. Then he will extend his hand to the great guiding star. The form in which the great guiding star dwells is the lotus. But the spark does not stop there. The soul will extend his hand to the three kings, known esoterically as Atma, Buddhi, and Manas, which forms the spiritual triad. And when he does, he becomes this rising sun that increases in life and magnetism and radiation. And he then becomes a path through which others may achieve. The Tibetan Djwhal Khul says that Christ immediately calls all his disciples at the exact minute when the sun moves to the north and orders them to prepare for the Vesak festival. This is the cosmic astrological alignment. All cosmos and humanity, nature and man, are in a very sensitive alignment. So we must be wise enough to use these moments in coming years. In that 1 second, we can be contacted by our solar angel and go to the triad when the sun is going to Sirius and the three kings. We are told to infuse ourselves with them for 1 second. In the next moment, we will not be the same person because we are cosmically radiating an opening, and telepathic things start unfolding. So at Christmas time, we are not teaching any religion. We are teaching the one religion. The one religion is the unfoldment of the soul, the transfiguration of humanity, of all men and women. If we do this for a few days, in these holy days, then we will overcome the darkness within us and tread the path that leads from the spark to the source. The masters, the great ones, their knowledge is also limited because it is related to their own achievements. But beyond that stands the darkness of knowable things. They must penetrate into that cloud age after age, which is why at the winter solstice, the Master Rikotse, who is called the Lord of Civilization, gathers all his disciples and great ones and they make tremendous decisions for the coming year. You see everything that we're being told about the importance of the winter solstice. This is valuable. So at the winter solstice, the seed is there, the spark, the sun is growing. We must charge ourselves, and in the Vesak time, tremendous high energies are going to burst forth. Vesak next year, 2016, is April 21st. So until the time of the Vesak festival, our magnetism and electricity must grow within us. And then we will be more conscious of what is going on. It doesn't happen overnight.